welcome to the Psychic Kitchen podcast. Follow us on Spotify and the Psychic Kitchen group on Facebook. Today we have Luka Ryan Garcia, Luka the Light 777 on TikTok. What's your
What?
Instagram, Luka?
Same thing. Luka the Light 777.
You can find him there as well. And
hmm
you post anything on Facebook, Luka?
I have a Facebook account, but I'm not really as active on there.
Okay.
I've been trying to get away from Facebook. It's more like a close community kind of thing. But I don't know. It's too much having like so many social media, so I stick to TikTok and Instagram.
It is. I've been posting a lot, and it's quite insane.
Yeah.
Trying to go back and forth. Anyways, today we're going to be talking to Luka. He does music. He's in a band. What's the name of your band, Luka?
Nithara, Nithara.
Okay. You also find that on Spotify, I believe, too.
Spotify, iTunes, pretty much all the major streaming platforms.
And what do you do, Luka? Is it human design, tarot?
So I do mostly tarot, but I just within the last couple of years started studying in human design and starting to do human design, like introduction to human design readings. Probably within the next year or two, as I get like more well versed with it, I'll probably like start doing like courses and whatnot on human design because there's a lot of information to it.
Have you ever looked into the gene keys?
I've heard of that, but no, I've never looked into it.
Yeah, I actually had someone do it on me, but I don't know anything about it. I don't know anything about human design. It's like some like offshoot of human design or something like that.
So, Luka, just because I hadn't really heard of human design. Can you just give us an overview of what human design actually is? I know it may be self-explanatory, but I just wondered if you could just explain it, just for those who aren't aware of it.
So human design, the way they describe it, it's basically like it takes your astrology information, so your natal chart, your numerology information. It takes like lessons and key points from like the Kabbalah and the I Ching, I believe, and it puts that all together and then creates like a formulation. So the way that I describe it is, it's kind of like it identifies your individual like energy center and how you operate as a human and how you, instead of, whereas astrology is kind of like the individual and how you work within yourself, human design explains how yourself works within a collective of people, and it kind of like categorizes you in a larger, so it kind of in like a large grouping of people. So it kind of takes the egoic aspect out of it, like the individual, and like places you in a larger thing. And it's really meant to like help you understand your role in human evolution.
Yeah, so it's kind of almost like being in a village and everyone has specific roles, and understanding what their roles are and which ones are specific best for certain positions. Oh, okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
How did you get into it? What made you sort of get into that aspect, that human design?
Somebody told me about it actually like years and years ago. And I looked into it. They looked up my chart. They didn't really know much about it, but I looked into my chart and I just looked into like the main parts of it. And then I got like interested because it kind of like made a little bit of sense, but I wanted to learn more about it. And then as I dove into it, and then through the months of kind of studying it and started utilizing it as like a tool for my own spiritual development, I got like really sucked into it. And like, I find myself using everything I've learned about myself in it like every day. It's a really like useful thing, as opposed to like I don't really use my astrological stuff every day because it's kind of hit or miss. The human design stuff got me like it helped me excel like in my own spirituality, and helped me, the way I see it, it's kind of like it takes like a masculine left brain like approach to spirituality, and kind of like it's more like a scientific like tangible kind of thing, as opposed to where I feel like astrology is kind of more like metaphysical.
Okay, so you it's sort of it's very much you can apply it. It's almost you can relate to it. You don't have to, shall we say, try and stretch it a little bit like what astrology does sometimes, and things can apply to sort of a larger group of people. But the human design is more specific to the individual, but it's the individual, how they perform in the collective almost.
Absolutely, yeah. I find too with like a lot of people that I like do readings for, when they come back to me after a couple months, they tell me about how like much it's like helped them not only identify themselves, but then as they start to understand their own intuition, they'll look into other people's charts instead of looking up other people's astrology charts. They'll take that information, look up what their human design is, and then they'll be like, whoa, this makes so much sense on why I like naturally work with this person, or why this I have like disagreements with this type of person and whatnot. And I get a lot of good feedback on it, and it's cool because I hear about people that I've done readings for like a year or two ago. They hit me up and they're like, "Yo, this is crazy. It like affects me on an everyday basis in a positive way." So it's cool.
Do you feel
So
it's better? Sorry, Jimmy. Do you feel
no,
like
you
it's better to? Because I've seen with astrology, I've had people compare charts. Do you feel like it's better at predicting how two people work together?
Hmm. Yeah, like I said, it's more tangible and it's more accessible too. Whereas I think astrology is like, if you think about like with astrology, like the way that your planetary alignments were on that day and what like makes your chart, they're basically like a guideline, almost like a blueprint of who you are, but we all grow and evolve through our life. So like even though I'm a Scorpio sun, Virgo moon, Sag rising, like those characteristics of myself can change throughout my life. So even though those might be who I was when I was born, like I feel like I identify with like different energies, whereas human design, like it's the actual like it's more of like the 3D world kind of like perspective. Like I said, it's more tangible. It's something that like never changes. It's you're kind of like
it's
it's
always at
more
the
of like,
core.
yeah, it's more trying to find like a good word, like I guess more like identifiable, more I know I said tangible twice, but like that's like the best word I can use to describe it. It's like a very tangible thing. It just makes sense, and it doesn't really ever like shift. It's always kind of like a it's a good lens to see reality through.
Mm, makes sense. So instead of someone, if you're like looking for a relationship or want to work with someone, then instead of us and see their astrological chart or asking what star sign they are, then you'd be better off asking what their human design sort of chart, sort of reading is.
I would say so. Yeah, definitely. You could use a mix of both, especially for like relationship type stuff. But
Mm,
so astrology is like more of an ancient practice. Human design is actually like I think it was they started generate. I can't remember what year exactly they started like working on it and putting it together, but I think it's a fairly new concept, like from like the 70s or 80s maybe, and then it's just kind of rolling out and really becoming more like mainstream and known. So it's kind of like the more modern approach to all of that. It's more evolved, I guess, would be a good way to look at it.
okay, cool. I like that. Have you used it to like when you, for example, when you got together got a band together? Did you worry about your band members' human design, or did you just knew that you kind of gelled or fitted together?
Actually, yeah. So I usually when I meet people, I like to look up their chart, especially people that I'm like working closely with, like in something that I'm trying to, because I'm a generator. As you both are generators too. We'll get into that in the charts, but so like as a generator, like I produce energy, but as generators producing energy, I mean it's exactly what it is. Like you are like a source of power for people to tap into. If you're not aware like of the people that are tapping into that power, then they're gonna like that's how you like get burned out and like drained. So I'm always looking up people's charts and seeing how I
Mm,
can best utilize my energy or like where to set certain boundaries with people and like how to kind of direct and guide things, especially like in like leadership positions in like the workplace and in like bands and such.
mm, okay, cool.
So how does your spiritual journey start?
So I feel like I was born. I wasn't born deaf in my right ear, but as I was born, I had meningitis and it attacked my spinal cord, and then I went deaf in my right ear from it. So from a young age, I was always kind of outcast because of that, and through kind of like feeling that way, like kind of alienated from the world. I always kind of had a different perspective of things, so I think I was always somewhat spiritual to a degree. Um, it's kind of like the how they say there's like always like the angel and the demon on your shoulders. I could
Oh, yeah.
never identify because like the indefinite one here, like which one was which, or like if it, so I was always confused. So I always like kind of like spiritually had this like deeper like perspective on life. And then in 2015 I had a motorcycle crash and a near death experience, and that's what like that out of
Oh,
body experience is what really like triggered me to like really focus in and be like, okay, there's something more to all this, and it
What
kind of
did you
like confirmed it for me.
what did you see it on the other side?
So what I saw, it was really interesting. It was like so the thing that I remember so I will say this, when I was like on the other side, I didn't remember anything. It was just I was just pure awareness. Sorry about that. Someone tried calling me. I had to end it. So I was it was just pure awareness. It was like shining darkness, what they would consider like nirvana. It was like ultimate peace, probably like the greatest frequency I ever felt. Like nothing existed. It's like if you shut your eyes and like you see like how it's darkness, but you can see kind of like the speckles of light. That's how I describe it. But I didn't have like a sense of ego, a sense of time, like any memory or any sense of like thought. I was just like purely aware of a space, like a vibration. And then as I focused on that awareness, then it felt like I was watching almost like when how they describe if you like hit DMT, how you like start to see fractals and stuff. And I started focusing on that fractalization, and then it felt like I was going through a flip book of time, like really fast, and went through everything that ever had consciousness until I like shot through light and then was running after a motorcycle. It was crazy. So it kind of felt like going to like the seat of like the architect and then watching the universe kind of unfold itself from like a thought.
I read something a while ago. I saw a video where someone else said that they lived multiple lifetimes, billions of lifetimes for over billions of years, but yet when they came back to their body, that it was maybe 10 minutes had passed or an hour or something like that. Whereas and I mean, going by our understanding of time, like in the 3D realm, that seems incomprehensible, but it all makes sense if you're not in the 3D realm, yes, because it's just the way that things work. But
absolutely
fascinating.
It reminds me of this story. I'll just say it real quick. But Eric Shafir, he's one of Rogan's friends. He was on Rogan, and he had done some Sylvia, maybe. I forget which one it was, but he did it, and he was gone for like 10 minutes. And when he came back, he's like, I just lived a whole nother lifetime. I had children. I grew old. And like, when he came back 10 minutes later, he was like, what on earth am I doing here? But yeah, it's crazy. I've done DMT before. I've seen some crazy stuff.
Yeah, I've never done DMT.
It's pretty awesome.
Oh, you've done it as well, have you, Luka? Oh, cool. That reminds me. I mean, there was a Star Trek Next Generation episode. I don't know if any of you like Star Trek Next Generation, where Picard had basically the same experience. He had a life on another planet, lived a full lifetime, and then went back to the ship. I don't know. I can't remember what happened, how he became unconscious or in a coma or whatever. But only a few days had passed, and he'd had a whole lifetime. He'd grown old, etc. So it's almost like they're showing what happens, and I guess in a sense there's nothing to be afraid of.
Absolutely, yeah. It was cool because when I remember because I went to do a wheelie and a car pulled out in front of me, and I remember like I freaked out, and you're supposed to like if something happens like that, you're supposed to hit your rear brake to bring the front down, and I slapped the throttle and flipped the bike over on myself, but I don't remember like ever hitting the ground or anything. Like there was no transition. It was like just being aware of like it was like oh shit, and then like nothing. And then when I came back to it, it took me like probably like 15 or 20 minutes to kind of recollect who I was and where I was. Like I was kind of like disoriented. Something was familiar, but I like had no like really sense of like awareness. I was still kind of dissolved from like my ego, and it like it's like my consciousness took a little bit of time to like reintegrate.
It makes sense, even though it wasn't a near-death experience, but I can kind of know what you're saying, because it's almost like the moment of impact, or the moment you don't remember, but you remember just before that. Because I remember it was when I was a kid. I was playing in goal in a football game, and apparently I ran into the goalpost, and I must have bashed it with my head, and I knocked myself out.
Oh shit!
But I can remember turning around and running. I can't remember hitting the goalpost, but then I remember waking up behind the goal, but I can't remember actually hitting the thing or how I got to behind the goal. But you know, it's almost like that groggy feeling when you wake up. Like, where am I? Although like I say, it wasn't a near death. I didn't have any experience of the darkness or seeing billions of going through the things that you did. But I can kind of know what you mean, because you can't remember that impact, that moment of impact, or what happened, but you can remember just before. So yeah,
I think it was I think it was actually back to talking about the Joe Rogan podcast. I think one of the podcasts that he did, he was speaking on. They were talking about the Ocean Gate thing, and how quick it like imploded. That like the with the speed of how we perceive pain, the way that your like consciousness actually like it's supposedly your consciousness like leaves your physical body before you like experience that pain in like a traumatic like situation like that. So that would make a lot of sense.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, that does. Yeah.
I had a
I know.
similar experience when I was 9. I was in this creek and I had no shoes on. I was always outside. Anyway, so I'm walking through there and I stepped on this piece of glass and it cut my foot open. And there was this massive like thing of earth, hill of earth, and like I was like, how do I get up that embankment? It was like really high,
Mm-hmm.
and I blacked out, and I was on top of the hill.
Wow.
And I was just pouring blood out of my foot. I mean, when
Bloody
they
hell.
did, I think they did like 33 stitches, but it was like they were like, if you had cut this 1 millimeter more, you would have lost like nerve in your foot. But yeah, it was just like I'm getting it was divine grace because like no way I could get up that with my foot like. 'Cause I saw like a yellow jacket flying around me and I stepped to the side, and that's when I cut my foot open. I was like, oh Jesus.
33 stitches is a sort of a sign as well, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
so that's cool. But hey, I'll just say hello to a few people. Hey, Kathy. Hey, Suzanne. Hey, Julia. Hey, Lisa. If you've got any questions for Luka, then feel free to pop them in the chat, and we'll ask them. I don't. Do you want to go back to human design?
Sure.
I can bring up our charts, and you can just go through and sort of explain what. Well, you can just explain what they are. Go through parts of it. So let me share my screen. Oh no, I don't want that one.
Yeah, this will be pretty easy to dissect. Both of your charts are almost like completely identical, minus the incarnation crosses, which like gives you kind of like your individuality in the situation. But it's pretty cool.
Oh, okay, cool.
Also, your charts are very similar to mine too.
Oh, are they?
Yeah. When I was looking at your charts, so it'll be really easy to like dissect this and make sense of it.
Okay, so should I make this a bit bigger? Can you see that?
Yep. Yeah, I have everything written down too. So.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, that could be for the viewers. So
yeah.
So I'll start off with like just a general explanation of and this applies to both of you, just what like generators are. So like the strengths for a generator. Well, first off, a generator is exactly kind of like what the word sounds like. It's almost like being a power source. Generators make up about 70% of the population. So we are like the workers of the world. We generate like power for people to feed off of, especially like for projectors, reflectors, and manifest generators. And so our strengths as generators would be that we're very energetic, so we can produce like the most energy of all the other, and we also produce our own energy, whereas like projectors and reflectors don't really produce their own source of energy. They take from others and then they like kind of like transmute and channel it and project it back out or reflect it to people. They're masters of work and personal crafts, so the things that you focus your energy and that you're like passionate about, those are the things that you're like you end up mastering those things throughout your lifetime. Instead of like doing a lot of different things, you kind of like will focus in on those main things that really tune in and like help you like get the most like done and the most efficiently. We are highly sustainable with our energy and highly self-aware. The weaknesses would be often get frustrated. It's easy to quit too soon on something that you're working on. It's can't just like make it happen when people are like, it's kind of the idea of like easier said than done. That's probably something you've like said a lot in your life or felt that way when people are like, oh, just do this. And it's like, it just doesn't work that way. And then also can get stuck in emotional and mental slumps and burn out very easily. And when you do a burnout, like it takes a long time to regenerate your energy, and it takes like a lot of like personal space and like and boundaries to regenerate that. So generators are not supposed to initiate energies, so we are meant to follow through. And this comes to, I'm going to go into the charts now. So you both, obviously your types are generators. Your both of your strategies are to respond. So to respond, what that represents is like, so I'll use like Thomas as an example. So you do readings and healings for people. So by you generating like TikTok videos or just videos in general and like putting out like a source of energy, people resonate with that and they say, oh, like they pull that in. Probably you probably attract a lot of like projectors and reflectors, and they take that energy and they feel that and then they resonate with it. So then they come to you and they ask you for a reading or an energy healing, and then you have the decision to say yes or no based off how your emotional authority makes you feel. So if people come to you and it feels right and it feels resonant and you say yes, then like you're actually amplifying your energy and also amplifying that person's energy, and then you both can evolve and heal. But if you feel like a subtle, almost like a pushback, or you feel like people, their intention is not pure in coming to you for like some type of guidance or work, then that's your like that's your body, like, because before our brain and our emotions pick up on somebody's intentions, our body is like a frequency computer, so we're going to feel the energy of like what they're like tapping into or like or throwing at us. Like your body's going to physically pick up on, like, that's what your intuition is. Your body's going to physically pick up on that before your brain or your emotions do. So it's good to tune into your emotional authority. So I'll get into the emotional authorities now. Actually, wait, there was one other thing I needed to say. Yes or no questions are your best friends. So if people come to you and they're not offering you like easy yes or no like answers, like questions that you can just be like yes or no on, you'll probably find yourself getting frustrated. Like if they have a lot of like deep, in-depth questions, you'll probably find yourself getting kind of burnt out and drained and kind of like irritated with the situation. And so it's good to try to like direct your energy and your focus when you like speak to people towards like kind of guiding them towards asking you yes or no questions, because that's the easiest, most efficient way to like do your work. It's like working smarter, not harder, kind of thing. So Jimmy, your inner authority is your emotional solar plexus. So obviously solar plexus, it's the confidence center. And you are naturally skilled at formulating solutions, assimilating ideas, upholding key principles among the collective, inciting major breakthroughs, and you are essentially meant to amplify the emotions of other people. So it's like very like empathic energy. And you're also meant to identify inhibitor emotions. So like the emotions that are like not working like properly for people, and like the feelings and things that aren't like working out. So a good example of that would be like me expressing to you about like frustration being your like an emotion that'll like, that's your not self theme, which I'll get into that here in a moment too. So, and you're both of your not self themes is frustration. So the not self theme represents like the emotion that it'll flip you over on yourself, and it's actually like kind of like, it's kind of like it's like a siphon to your gas tank. Like if you allow yourself to get frustrated or you find yourself getting frustrated in a situation, that's when you need to like set boundaries or like release yourself from whatever interaction you're in. Because as long as you stay in that frustration, you're allowing that person to tap into your like power source and basically siphon all your energy out. And that's how burnout happens.
Okay.
So, yeah, so meant to amplify emotions, identify inhibitor emotions, and within yourself and other people. Thomas, your inner authority is your sacral. So, and you were actually you mentioned sacral on our live a couple times the other day, and it was actually funny because I feel like that's a chakra that you really resonate with. And mine is also sacral. So you operate definitely out of like an emotional, but also like creative like source. Like you're very good at generating creative ideas and helping to propel people towards like a journey of inner truth. Enlightenment, practicality. So it's like more of like a masculine energy, and also personal growth. You're a practical thinker. You're highly adaptable, and so you're meant to be kind of like a mentor or like a spirit guide for people in a way, which makes sense exactly in how you like what you're doing for work and whatnot. And I actually like find you to be like a mentor to a degree as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So then we will get into, I got to jump around a little bit. We'll get into the definitions. So Thomas, you are a split definition. So the definition is and this is like speaking on like if you see in the actual like the graph at the bottom with all the channels and whatnot, and all the numbers, those are all like the different gates, and they represent like different emotions and different things. Like, and so I think the black lines represent the positive aspects of your emotional self. This is the stuff I'm like still learning right now. And then I think red lines are the like inhibitor emotions. But to be a split definition represents that you don't have a connection between your sacral and your throat motor. So this is where the whole idea of like responding comes from. So it's you'll probably find, Thomas, if you create or generate an idea and then you try to initiate that idea, it probably 99% of the time never works out, or you find yourself getting frustrated about it because you have that disconnect in that. So you're meant to just like kind of create an energy, propel it outwards, and then you're supposed to allow other people to initiate you, and then you respond to that. And that's what like it's so other people coming to you with like almost like a choice, like an option on what to do with that energy, kind of like a give and take. That's what creates that like that connection. If you were a single definition, then you would be able to like generate ideas and then also like initiate them, and you would. But you, I think generally people that have a like generator types or that have that single definition, like they have the connection between the throat motor and their emotional authority. I think generally they're manifest generators. So then, Jimmy, your emotional authority is triple split definition. So I had to write this one down. This was actually a new one that I hadn't come across yet. So what this represents is you have 3 separate energy centers within you.
Right.
And all of them don't have a defined, so all of them don't have a defined communication like between the 3. So they're all kind of working in their own ways. You probably find that like your intuition, you probably feel it in different parts of your body at different times. So each one of those centers has their own agenda, and they can create a lot of contradiction and like inner tension. But because of this, it offers a unique perspective on life. So when you can allow those 3, instead of trying to make all 3 of those like energy centers within you work together, it's like allowing them all to do their own thing, and then learning how to like allow them to like kind of work in like communion with each other, but even though they're not really communicating with each other, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I see what you mean.
And then we have, so the profile types, you're both the 4-6 profile, which is the opportunist and the role model. And I'll send you guys stuff too after this. Like you can, I found some like information that you can read into that'll dive a little bit deeper on this. But the opportunist and the role models represent, obviously, like the word role model. It's like you are meant to kind of help guide people and be, like I said, like it's like that mentor energy. But also with the opportunist, it's that it's kind of like that go-getter energy. Like you produce this frequency and you produce this energy for people to tap into. And if these people bring you like an easy yes or no question, when you're listening to your emotional authority and you find yourself, it's like, I always say it's kind of like either like a fuck yes or a fuck no kind of thing. So like if you're feeling like, yeah, let's do this, that's like, that's what you're meant to be doing, is like when you feel that like, yeah, like the drive and the passion to do it. But if you feel that kind of like hesitation, then that's what'll kind of like lead you to burnout and such. So it's good to like take opportunities as they present themselves and be but to be like highly aware of how your body feels when you like how your body feels before your emotional center like feels, essentially, because when people talk to you, you'll probably like feel like your intuition, like when the people say that gut response that you get, or like your gut hurts, or if you're not somebody who can like really feel it as much, then that's why like the frustration thing is like a good identifier emotion. If you feel that energy of frustration, that's when you know like what answer to make, like to either set boundaries or to give yourself space to like kind of process like what the opportunity is and decide whether it's like work like best for you or not best for you. And the thing with that too, with human design, is like if you're not listening to your emotional authority, then you're if you're not honoring yourself, then you're not honoring the outside self as well. So when you listen to yourself, your decisions are like the best decision that you can make is the decision that not only like helps you but also helps the entire whole, because you're the one generating the energy for people. So when people tap into your energy and they come to you with like a big idea, if you're allowing too many people that are just kind of siphoning from you and getting you frustrated, then when good opportunities do come, you will miss those opportunities because you don't have enough like power to like produce and like kind of tap in and make it happen, and things will just kind of be stagnant. And this is where it's good to have like manifest generators around, so they can kind of amplify and like project. Manifest generators are kind of like they're kind of like the those like baseball pitching machines.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they basically say you're the baseball, your energy is the baseball. Like a manifest generator is basically like it's what projects that and like amplifies it and like makes things happen a lot quicker. So I was telling Michelle actually the other day,
sorry, I was just going to say, is Michelle by any chance a manifest generator?
She is, yes. So it makes a lot of sense. I was just talking to her about this. It's funny. So when I went live the other day, and this is a great example, and I think this has probably happened with you as well, Thomas. When I was live the other day trying to do readings for the first time by myself, things were going really slow, and I was fighting with myself to like not get frustrated about like how slow things were moving. But then when you and her popped in, you kind of helped amplify and tap into like and kind of ground my energy as a generator. But then her energy naturally kind of took what was already there and amplified it. And as soon as she popped in as a moderator, it was like people just started like boom, 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 like reading started flowing in, and it was crazy. And I'm sure that's probably happened with you as well before. So she's meant to kind of like amplify. It's like a slingshot kind of.
Yeah, she ended up because I was watching the live and I was like, I'm just not feeling like going on live. And she messaged me. She's like, Tom, it's going live. I was like, okay, fine. Like it wasn't anything personal. I was just like, I don't feel like going on camera. Anyways, and she was like, okay, let's go. But that happens a lot with her. So she'll just be like, do this. I'm like, okay, do this.
Yeah, I mean, she's living in her proper design type. Usually, if she like pops in with an energy or with anything and is like, "Yo, let's go, let's do this," like she kind of has that opportunist energy. It's good to identify. So like most manifest generators, it's good to have the right ones around you. So Michelle's a good one because her intentions are always good. But manifest generators, they make up 10% of the population, and I'm pretty sure I read something that the people that are like running the world right now are manifest generators. So it makes sense why like everybody's working jobs that they hate, and you have like the elite, like the top 1% that are like making all the money while everyone else is like suffering because their intent is not good, and they're basically siphoning, like harvesting like energy from people. So it's good to like know what like manifest generators you have around you. And come back to like what you were asking earlier about if I like when I have people around me, if I look into their charts, absolutely. And this is like a big reason why. Because it's really easy I feel like manifest generators, in my experience personally, and from stuff I read and heard from other people, is like they can generally be either super empathetic and helpful, or they can be very like I don't really like coining the word narcissist, but very like kind of self-serving. In a way, just because of how they like can produce their own energy, but they also can tap in and really like sneakily like just siphon you like really fast.
Is that where the sort of the term they coined the phrase energy vampires comes from, or something different? Or
I would assume so. Yeah, actually, I never thought of that, but that makes a lot of sense.
And does the chart? I mean, can the chart? I'll ask. Can the chart sort of read someone's intentions? So, for example, does Michelle's chart, is there something in their chart that says she has pure good intentions, and is there something in the chart that says someone has bad intentions, or is that just something we have to feel for ourselves and into
that would be something you'd have to feel for yourself more, because and that's like the whole point of like human design. So like the way that I see human design is it explains your power center, your like who you are and what your intuition is, and this helps you to like hone in on that. So looking at somebody's human design chart won't necessarily tell you whether they're a good person or not. It just tells you their design type. And I think the astrology and that person's personal experiences and who they are and what they've gone through in life is what shapes their intention and how they utilize their power or other people's power, essentially. So that's why it's good to like understand your design type, because then you can identify the people that are When I learned my human design, I was able to like start really setting boundaries in my life because I was terrible at it. I was a people pleaser. But when I started listening to my like chart, and I do it every day, like I'll have a situation where like my body tells me something and I'm like, nope, listening to this, like this person's not good. Or I'll get that, like, it's like I said, it's like either like a fuck yes or a fuck no. Like that's like our that's where our power is with like as a generator. You either like it's like either like yep, let's do this, or like I don't feel right about this. So it's good to listen to that.
Cool.
Yeah. And then there's one more thing on here. So the incarnation crosses, and this is where you guys slightly differ. So Jimmy, your incarnation cross is the right angle cross of explanation. It's the 449 channel and the 2343.
Right.
And this comes back to what I was reading earlier about naturally skilled at formulating solutions, assimilating ideas, upholding key principles among the collective, and inciting major breakthroughs. So you're able to identify in other people what's working for them and what's not, and probably giving them like a very balanced perspective on like where they should like, it's like through understanding your own power and how your energy works, you can see that reflection in other people, and then you can explain to other people to help them evolve through like kind of through like leading by example. And then for Thomas, yours, this is what I read already as well. Yours is the right angle cross of Maya, 62, 61, 42, 32. So those channels help propel people towards a journey of inner truth, enlightenment, practicality, and growth. Practical thinker, highly adaptable, and like I said, mentor, spirit guide. So your energy is more, I feel like, so Jimmy, your energy is more like with your incarnation cross, you're meant to kind of like guide people out in a direction into the world based off of your experiences. And whereas Thomas, you're meant to kind of guide people inward. Yeah, it's kind of like more of like an inward journey, which then they can find the keys to access how they should like go about. So say if you were both working together, like doing readings or just on like reading people's energy and stuff like that, it would be best for Thomas essentially to start with it and then give them that inner direction. And then once they figure out what's going on within them, then to come to you, Jimmy, and then you can show them how to like take what they've learned and then process that and utilize it in their everyday life.
Sort of practical examples, sort of thing, and
yeah.
I see what you mean. That actually, that's pretty much spot on. I do tend to sort of try and give people examples and practical ways of doing things rather than just sort of talking about it. But yeah, so that's perfect.
Heck yeah. Let me double check and make sure I didn't miss anything here.
I have a question.
Yeah, what's up? I was actually going to ask that too. If you guys have any questions throughout the process.
There's the symbols that are on the left and right hand side. I don't know what they are. I recognize the male and female ones, but I'm not sure of the others. There might be zodiac signs. I'm not sure, but I noticed that on my personality, on the right hand side, the male one is 18.4 and the female one is 18.3. Does that mean there's a balance there between male and female?
I would assume so, yeah. So this aspect of human design, like all the gates and channels, the numbers, this is what I'm like currently starting to study actually as of like the last week. So I'm not the best person to give you like the answer on that quite yet. But like I said, I'm still like on the kind of like introductory like kind of thing. But I'm reading a book about it right now, I feel like within the next like probably month or two, I'll understand this pretty well to where I can start doing courses, so I can dissect that part of the chart for you once I dive a little deeper. But it has to do all with like your energy channels, and they all the numbers and the symbols represent like different emotions and different ways to like, it's like the inhibitor emotions and whatnot. Those are like the very specifics kind of thing. Whereas like frustration being your not self theme. There's all kinds of other emotions and like thought processes that kind of branch off of that, and that's what that part of the chart I believe is.
Okay, cool.
But I would assume that like represents a pretty good like balance because the numbers are so close together.
There's just one that sort of, mainly because it was the only symbols I recognized, but also because I thought, well, that's interesting that they're virtually the same. So have you got any questions about yours, Thomas?
Does it explain like psychic abilities at all?
I feel like it can not necessarily. I haven't read anything like in the books that I've like, or as far as that I've delved into about psychic abilities. I know that maybe in like the channels and stuff like that, the different emotional channels. And I can
Mhm.
actually recommend you. This book was only like $10, but if you want to like look into that stuff on your own as well, it's like
Yeah.
really cool information. You can also like look that stuff up online as well. I know that certain aspects of it will kind of they might like guide you towards like explaining things like that, but
Mm.
as far as I know, I haven't looked into it. Let me look at the glossary real quick. There's yeah, because it talks about like the logic circuit, the sensing circuit, defense circuit, ego circuit, centering, knowing, integration, individual, tribal, collective. Yeah, and I think the circuits are all like I said, that's all involving like the different emotions and things that kind of like it's kind of like from what I understand so far, like all the numbers and the channels on the chart are more representative of. It's kind of like if you look into like your natal chart,
Mm.
and instead of like your sun, moon, and rising, you have like all the other like houses and whatnot, and
Mm.
how they're like very individual, like specific things. I think that's kind of like more what that part of the chart resonates with in human design. Whereas like the stuff that I just kind of explained is more kind of the like the broad like sun, moon, and rising aspect of
Mm.
but like the human design thing. Like I said, human design is like the left brain,
Mm.
masculine, kind of like logical approach to spirituality, whereas astrology and stuff like that is more of like the feminine, like right brain.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Cool. Fascinating.
I had my
Really.
astrology dissected quite a bit. Like supposedly, like I'm supposed to be some massive psychic or something. Lead some kind of rebellion, my guys or something.
You're definitely a leadership energy for sure.
Yeah. So when you start to like get an idea, like is there like because it's more of a logical perspective over here. So like I don't know how to ask the question. So like if you were to do something, like is it just better to act upon it based upon our charts or just to see what happens? Because I found that usually is the way it works for me. If I
Tell
have
me.
an idea, I just do it.
Yeah, so like in terms of I can the best thing that I can use an example is like as a reader or like when you make videos, if you have an idea for like a certain type of content to make, to act on that idea. But when you act on that idea, you create that that video or whatever, or like a class or a course, you're creating that thing essentially. Or it could be the same thing as like if you write a book, you're taking your energy and channeling into something, and then the purchasing of that like book or people coming to you for the reading is the response that you get. So it's kind of like you produce the energy and then people come to you. So does that make sense?
Mm.
Yeah, because it's like with Facebook or TikTok, like I know Jimmy and a lot of people watched me when I started. It was kind of out there crazy, but it worked for me. Because for me, it was just like, just do it.
Mm-hmm.
See what happens. And if I didn't like the way it was going, I would just change the way I was doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But like
Yeah,
there's
like
always
find a
an
more like
answer.
efficient approach.
Yeah, I was like, there's always an answer to this. So even like with TikTok, I've said this before, but like I did 2 TikToks, tried doing like Facebook. This was 2.5 years ago or 2 years ago. And I get like 30 people. I was like, I don't like this. And so I just happened to be up that night. I can say this on Facebook. And I'd taken, some oil and some fungi. And I had my shirt off and I was pretty jacked. And my guys were like, go live now. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh, this will be so interesting. And it just blew up, just kaboom. And
Mm-hmm.
even with Facebook, it was kind of the same thing. I was just like, I don't want to, because no one was really live at that time anyway. But I
Mm-hmm.
was just like, why not just be insane? Like, just say exactly what I want to say. I don't care
Yep.
what anyone thinks.
Yeah.
Uh, like, I don't care. So just see what happens.
Mm.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the way to be. So actually like a good way to relate to this. So as a generator also in my not self-theme being to frustration. So I had a
Mm.
similar thing happen. Something my intuition. I had been working towards like kind of getting my energy levels up when I started learning human design, and then I kind of like took a break from the world and people, and then got myself to where like once my energy started getting up, and then once it hit like a certain like peak, I felt like this like burst of energy, like this kind of and that's usually when I have those bursts of energy, or when I have those big creative ideas, or I feel like my guides are like you said, it's like when your guides are like, go do this now, like boom, like take that approach, like do it right now. So something told me to go get a tarot deck. I didn't know which one I was going to get, went and did it, and then it told my intuition was telling me to like do a reading with that deck, and that first reading that I did with the deck that I was like drawn to was the one that blew up. And then overnight I went from 100 something followers to like 30,000 like in like a couple hours. And it was like because I got myself to that energy where I was able to like produce, and it's kind of like like exploding your energy outwards, almost like if your power goes down and then like the power generator, or like a power generator explodes, like that energy that like shoots out, that's kind of like what happened. And then I found like, so what I learned with the frustration thing, so when people were, as many like readings that I was getting, like people coming to me for readings, I was getting twice as many people telling me, like messaging me in my inbox, that I had fake people like trying to scam them and shit, which was getting me frustrated. So the more I focused on the frustration, the more that was happening, because I was tuning into that energy and giving that frequency away. But then when I learned how to like not care anymore, and then do the things, like start like putting on my videos, like, oh, like I won't, it's like putting up those energetic barriers and creating those fences so that like people can't like take from that energy, like kind of like plug in those holes. Then once I started like figuring out how to do that, then I was no longer finding myself getting frustrated. Now like nobody really ever hits me up about like those fake readers and shit like that, and I'm like just kind of like getting back into the flow thing. So
It's interesting with the scammers on TikTok, because like it's I kind of feel bad for them, because they're probably in like Africa. They don't make any money. I tried to help them out before they started doing it. I was like, you should try this. They're like, what? Anyways, but yeah, it was on Facebook. Like, you should go. But yeah, I was like, I mean, now everyone has scammers. Like when it started, yeah, it threw me off, but like extremely. But I was like, everyone has them. They're like 50, 1,000. Like the bigger you are, the more there are.
Yeah, it's wild.
Would you say there was any value in trying to get them all banned, or to shut them all down, or just let them be and don't give them your energy?
Exactly. Second, the latter. Yeah. Because I found when I was trying to report and everything, it was wasting precious energy, and also responding to people that were in my inbox saying like, oh, is this you? Like, that's why I just started. It's easier to post on your video, hey, I won't message first, blah, blah, this and that, as opposed to responding to every message and every person. Because I had some people that were, honestly, I'm pretty sure that a lot of people like just use it as an excuse to get in my inbox and talk to me. It's kind of like the energy that I picked up on, which then made it feel even weirder. So I just started to learn how to just like ignore it. Like, and that's where like the idea of personal boundaries comes in, is like understanding your energy and being like, okay, like I'm just not going to respond to this. If it's not in alignment with my intention that I'm trying to get back from what I'm trying to produce, then it's not worth like feeding any energy into, because that's where you like allow somebody to kind of come in and like, and where you, as you think they're going to like tap in and take a little bit of like, it's like someone coming to you and you're like a gas tank, and they're trying to they say they're going to put 87 fuel in their tank, but then they end up taking diesel and like swindling you on like that extra extra money's worth, if that makes sense.
And there's almost like you're constantly fighting fires as well, almost. If you're trying to, and also it kind of, the way that one way that I sort of see it is that although you're trying to say, if you were to do that and you were trying to warn people and everything, then I mean, we've all been, I mean, I've been scammed a few times, not psychic reading, like different stuff in the crypto world and everything like that. But I've learned from that. I've learned to spot the signs. And if you try and sort of, I don't know, stop people from learning that lesson of being scammed and what it's like and how to spot the signs, then it's almost, in a way, you're denying them that experience of learning how to do that. By trying to sort of stop them going through it, and you're sort of almost trying to control. You feel responsible for other people's actions. You feel responsible for their behavior, and I think, I mean, you could say that's a noble gesture in a way, but it's almost like a white knighting like seeing yourself as the White Knight, having to save everyone from everything, without allowing them to go through what they need to do or to have that experience of being scammed, and most people don't, because they're basically, I think most people are clued up now. But yeah.
Absolutely, and your perspective on that, like you talking about that right now, goes right back to your incarnation cross type, with how I was saying you're naturally skilled at formulating like real solutions that are like valuable, assimilating the ideas, upholding like key principles of like evolution among collective energies, and inciting breakthroughs. So like
Oh,
yeah, so that's it. Like you speaking on that right there is an exact example of like your design type.
all right, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent.
I've noticed that a lot of people will try to get
Oh,
into your inbox just to speak to you.
Mhm.
And I'm like, go to my website and message me.
Mhm.
So they'll try to send you videos, they'll try everything just to try to talk to you. And I'm like, nah,
Yeah.
go to my website. I'm like cutthroat. I'm like, go to my website, message me there.
Yeah.
Because half the time, you know as well as I do, Luka and Jimmy too, like they just want something for free.
Mhm.
You're like, please help me with this. Go to my website. You can't afford to pay me. I'm sorry. What it is. I do a
Mhm.
lot of free work. So I'm like, if I
Mhm.
feel the inclination to do the free work, then I'll do the free work.
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
So, yeah.
And something that, when you said about how you needed to take a break, but then you felt like the energy build and you were ready to go. And is that sort of almost sort of how what you would call inspiration? And when people get inspired, their tank is full up again, and they feel like
Mhm.
they're ready to go. It's almost like the way that inspiration hits. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
mm,
It's kind of like the way that I see it for me is like going back to like the gas tank perspective. Like the metaphor is like when you show up at a gas station, and they have like the yellow thing on the handle of the gas pump, and that's out of order. Is like
right.
when you feel yourself like burning out, it's best to like just go completely out of order to everyone and everything and separate yourself. But that's like where your design type, especially as generators, where we have a lot of power is. So it would seem like where when we end up in burnout, that's actually like a negative thing. But moving into burnout, especially as an artist, and I found this works for me as an artist, is like I almost will like push myself to the edge of burnout and then completely like dice, like kind of like disappear from everyone and everything, and then I'll just like do the thing that like inspires me the most. So picking up a guitar, and when I'm playing in front of my amp, I'm vibrating the guitar on my sacral, which then is activating that in my power center, and then that's what's actually generating more energy. So it's like when you're where it seems like it would be a negative thing where you're kind of going into burnout, there's actually a lot of power, because when you go to that place, then that's where you set like a hard boundary, and then you kind of like can identify the the little thing that's kind of like the hole in the system that's kind of like leaking out your energy, and then you can patch it up, and then you give yourself the space to kind of regenerate and do the things you love to do, and that's where you get those bursts of like creativity, as opposed to like if you're not in burnout, you're getting really good at like it's good to kind of allow yourself to kind of overwork yourself too, because if you're kind of sitting stagnant and just doing like the bare minimum, then you're never going to get those big bursts of energy and those big ideas.
Do you find that when, say, for example, if you're writing songs or just playing around on the guitar, that you notice the difference between when you're fully energized and you're really feeling it, you're really into it, or whether you sometimes you just pick it up and you're not into it, and say you're writing things, and you notice the difference between when you are into it and when you're not into it, and the difference in quality in stuff you write, or not?
I used to in the
But now you're
process of
aware.
me, yeah, and like in the process of me learning how like learning how to get in tune with like my flow state. It was like my thoughts that would kind of create that that blockage. They say like writer's block essentially. I don't believe in writer's block really. It exists to a degree, but like in the past, and it's existed for me, but I think it's more of like a mental thing. It's like so I always say thought is the enemy of flow. So if you can find that state of like so for me it's like my guitar tone and the decibel level that I play at and the frequencies I tune to all have an intention of like when I pick up my guitar, all I have to do is strum it, and it's like it activates me immediately, and then I go into like a trance like state, and then that's where I go into my flow state. So I don't find myself like struggling to create anymore. I find myself like kind of just completely like dissolving from the ego and just letting it flow through, as opposed to in the past I would like when I try to write something, that's when I'm thinking about it and trying to like put an intention on, because I also believe that creative energy is it's beyond us. It's not our own energy. It's like us tapping into like spirit and the like etheric body and the astral. So
do you have a specific frequency that you play if you're feeling a specific way, or I mean, what are the frequencies?
yeah, it depends. Like if I find myself like if I'm wanting to sing, I'll tune to the throat chakra frequency, and it's awesome because it's actually the frequency of Mercury. It's four, I believe it's 446.5 hertz in the note of A. But when I tune to that frequency and then at a certain decibel level, so like volume wise, and this is why it's good to like amplify, it vibrates my body to a certain way. Then my body, like when I strum that guitar, vibrates my nervous system. Then that sends a signal to my brain, which then activates like that part of my throat center, and then I just find that I'm like connected to like my higher chakras. So I'll like just strum the guitar, and then like lyrics and words start wanting to come out of me, as opposed to like if I'm not really focused on wanting to write like if I'm finding myself like if I want to write something deep and emotional, I'll do, which is what I've usually like tuned to, is 444 hertz in the key of C, which is actually 528 hertz. So that's like the heart chakra frequency, and it's a solfeggio tone, and that's what I've been tuning to recently. And I find that gives me the ability to tap into like more kind of ambient trance like stuff, and it's very like melancholic, I guess is a good way to describe it.
Yeah, cool.
It's like they're all different planetary frequencies. All the different planets like resonate with the different chakras, and when you tune to those frequencies and when you vibrate them at a certain level, it physically vibrates your body and your nervous system to a level where it activates certain parts of your brain, which those planets represent, and this comes back to astrology, those planets represent certain emotions, and like it's a vibration and like an energy. So everyone has a connection to those emotions and those planetary energies. So when you tune to those frequencies, when you vibrate them at a certain level and like move the air in a room a certain way, it's activating those parts of like of something that resonates with everybody, but they're not always tapping into.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jimmy.
No, you go. Sorry, brother.
He's got this question about Siri. Could you tune a frequency to another planet in the universe, like the Sirian star constellation?
Probably, yeah. I would just have to look up what the actual like frequency of that, like the rotation of that is, and based off of like, so with the musical notes, Pythagoras like mapped out like how we get the musical notes is he mapped out the vibration, like the frequency of each planet around the sun, and that's where we like resonate them with like a certain tone. So I would have to figure out what like that like star system or what that planet, like what its sun would be, and like what the frequency like in terms of like time would be, and then there's like a bunch of math that you have to do in order to like translate that to an actual like guitar, because the guitar can only vibrate between like 320 to like 510 hertz, I believe. Whereas opposed to like a bass guitar would be like a lower like frequency, is because it's thicker, longer strings, so it's like a lower frequency, so it's more in like the 200 hertz range, I believe. There's a lot of math involved, but it's really cool once you figure it out. Like anytime, and a lot of the time people don't like, you can't really hear the difference, but it's the way that you feel it. Is like in a physical room is like it changes the way you feel the music and whatnot. And I think, and a lot of people like there's that like debate that goes on where it's like, oh, 440 or 432 hertz, like everybody argues about it. And I've always like, I think because being deaf in one ear, I can feel the difference like in my ear as opposed to hearing it. Whereas people are looking for like a physical, like a sound, whereas it's really like more of a subtle feeling that you feel. So I'm able to feel those frequencies and amplify them and pull out like certain overtones and stuff, so that you can like, so it's kind of like I have the ability to feel those certain frequencies and then amplify like specific ones to like show people like, hey, this really is real. Like frequency does matter.
I was going to ask you about 432 actually, whether what you thought of it, because I mean I tune my guitar to 432 just because I feel it sounds better to me. It feels better, but it's just personal preference, I guess, at the end of the day.
Yeah. So actually, growing up, before I had like guitar tuners, so like because being deaf in one ear, I would always put my ear on my guitar. So like you should try this. Like when you play your guitar, put your ear against it and kind of like try to like suction it and just like strum it, and then like cover your other ear, and it'll sound like you're inside the guitar, but because I can't hear it on my other ear, it feels like I'm physically inside of it, and it like I feel the vibration of it like run through me. So when I feel it run through all like my whole entire body, that's how I would like tune my guitars growing up. And everyone always told me that I was flat or out of tune, and I never had a tuner. So then when I got a tuner, I figured out what the frequency was, and I was always naturally tuning it to 432 hertz, which is really weird. So that's what kind of got me interested in all this stuff, and I started studying all the other frequencies. But cool. It's a great frequency, and I find that it's very it connects you to your body and obviously the earth, and I think it's like resonant with like the moon cycles, I believe. But the thing with 432 hertz, like if I tune to different frequencies, like the sun frequency is 449.8 hertz, and it's in the note of B, so it's like a low like tuning, but like it's a higher like frequency. If I go from like playing in the sun frequency and I do that for like a couple weeks at a time, I'll find myself being a lot more creative and not being able to sleep as much, but like not being tired. But then if I tune to like 432 hertz, my physical reality, it's because I'm physically like tuning myself in every day to that lower frequency. I find it can get shifty. I find actually the times in my life personally when the crazy things happen to me that you could perceive as like kind of like dark or just like kind of traumatic, or when I was tuning into 432 hertz a lot. But I think it's just because of like the huge jumps in frequency that I would like go through, and because of how sensitive I am to it.
I suppose you could sort of, you may be able to attribute that to the fact that the moon is seen as, I don't know, the sort of the one that brings out all the shadow aspects of people. And
absolutely, yeah.
Brings out that, I don't know, that layer that unveils everything. And obviously when you were tuning to that, then it brings it out. And everyone blames all their problems on the moon, you know, not that sort of that meme that goes around that says the moon's fed up with people blaming all of their problems on it.
Yeah, that's actually a great perspective, and I never thought of that. Like that makes so much sense, because I do, and thank you for that. Which you working in your design type again, like perfectly, like helping me to identify things that I'm going through and like kind of like see a new perspective on it. So that's really cool. Fist bump for that. But I definitely, when I tune to 432 hertz, I do find myself doing a lot more shadow work in those times of my life. So that makes a lot of sense. Wow, never thought of that. It's cool.
So, sorry, go on. You go.
Yeah, but about your tarot, because you do that a lot. For people who don't know, Luka's an excellent tarot reader. Much better than me by leaps and bounds. Anyway, so the point is, how did you get into that?
So actually, like after my motorcycle crash, somebody that I knew, I was explaining to her like my experience, and she was in like a coven, and this was like during like back in college, and the college I went to, there was a lot of like witchy people, and it was actually the town that like it's called Edinburgh in Pennsylvania, and I'm pretty sure that the people that fled the Salem witch trials like fled and went to Edinburgh, Scotland, but also like they went there too, in up north in Erie, Pennsylvania. So it's like a very witchy community. But the girl told me to get into tarot. I looked into it, never got into it, and then years went by where I was told to like get a deck. Like you're supposed to wait for somebody to gift you one, and I got sick of waiting for someone to gift me a deck, so I went and found one. Eventually, because I was like just so like hungry for the knowledge, so I went and found a deck, and then next thing you know, I like found that for some reason it's like, so the fool's journey, I felt like I'd gone through my own fool's journey, like, or something about like my motorcycle crash, like I downloaded like the knowledge, pre-existing knowledge in a way, or had access to it, and then when I studied the cards, like it made so much sense, as opposed to like studying the cards and then applying them to like situations that come through my life, whereas it like changed me as I go about it. It was kind of like my life had changed, and then the cards kind of like helped me piece that puzzle together. So I stuck with it, and then started doing readings for friends all the time. And then just people were telling me to do it on TikTok and whatnot. Then my intuition was screaming at me. And then, like I said, that one day I just felt that burst of energy and told me to go get a deck and then make a reading. And literally, like, I put a reading up, posted it, went to Guitar Center, and as I'm playing my guitar, like my phone just started vibrating, and I was like, yo, like, what is going on? It was just like zzz, zzz, zzz. And it was all TikTok notifications, and I opened it up, and it was like at like 10,000 followers in a matter of minutes. I was like, okay,
Excellent.
Looks like this might be a new career path. So I stuck with it and just went with it.
Do you enjoy doing it?
I do, yeah. It was very intense at first, just because of how quick my like profile blew up. It was kind of like I kind of disappeared for like a year because it was just a lot of energy. Plus,
Mm.
even though I don't care about likes and followers, like with how fast things were coming through, my brain got used to like the chemical, like the dopamine rush that I was getting from that. So when I kind of took a little bit of a break and I wasn't getting as much of the like as much content, like I wasn't getting as much feedback from it. Like it literally felt like I had gotten like truly depressed for the first time of my life and like really got into like a dark place and didn't know how to control it. And it kind of like fucked me up for a while and freaked me out because I was like, I don't care about these things, but like my brain physically like needed that. So it took a long time to like kind of deal with that and figure that out. But it was all a part of like the journey and it made me a stronger person in the end, which is cool.
Yeah,
So I enjoy it a
TikTok,
lot more now.
I think TikTok's designed like that.
Yeah,
They're
absolutely. That's what
designed to
freaked
like
me out.
drive me crazy. I've seen it with other creators, and I'm just like, oh
Yeah,
my god,
dude.
Like Flappy
it's
Bird.
happened to me.
Yeah, yeah. It was scary. Like, because I've always been known as a person who had like a lot of self control and self awareness of my own like mind, and I was very good at like having control of my mind and my thoughts. But when I felt like I had zero power over that, I was like, this is dark. Like, this is not cool. But also through going through that and learning how to like figure that out, I'm now learning ways that I can like help guide other people like away from like the negative intention of what social media is trying to do. And I feel like that's actually the big reason why I got on TikTok. Was something told me like I was supposed to get on there and like and figure things out and help people kind of like still realize that they can use technology but not like get suffocated by it, and kind of like as the digital age comes through. And that's why I'm like an analog musician. I don't really go with like the digital stuff.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So I'm trying to like keep that like the nature aspect of like music and just like the self alive, but like it's healthy to have like things in moderation. Like technology can be a great thing, but if we just like, I don't think it's good that we're putting chips in our brains and shit. Like it's probably not a good
No,
idea.
I don't either, man. I don't want to. I've always said this, and I said this to my friend I've known since 17. I'm like, I never want to sound like my parents. Like and be like in the future and be like, well, it was so good back then or whatever. But at the same time, I see what's going to happen. And I remember, I always say his name wrong, Chiron, Lee Carroll. He said this like 6 years ago. I used to listen to this guy like hundreds of hours of him. And people watching it's Kyron. He's on all over YouTube. But it's like there's going to be a split in the human collective. Like there's these people that are going to go totally technological, and then people that are going to like go back to the old ways. And what I see is like from looking at it is I see like chips in people's brains and like tentacle looking things coming out of their brains and all this stuff. It leads me to the wonder what's going to happen to the person, because like if you have access to everything on the internet, but everything on the internet's controlled, your access to knowledge is going to be totally influenced by what's controlled. So yeah, you can pull up any date or time or anything like that, and I know they did Neuralink in somebody's brain already. They
I think just like recently they started the first trial like the last couple weeks.
Who in their right mind would put that in their head?
No idea. Have you heard of
I have a feeling a lot of people will. I have a feeling a lot of people will do it because like that Apple Vision thing, like everyone's like running around buying it. I'm like, why do you need the internet connected to your head?
Yeah. Have you heard of Rudolf Steiner? And like he was big in like the early 1900s. So he speaks on like how they're trying to use medicine and stuff like that in the future. Like I've read something where he's speaking on like the next 100 years from like the 1920s that they were going to try to no longer use medicine to heal with their breakthroughs. They were going to use it to try to disconnect the soul from the etheric body. And basically create like and this comes to like the human design thing, is like basically just make people into like just like living just like energy like machines that like have no like sense of self-awareness and whatnot. And I think that has a lot to do with like outside of just like the medicine like aspect of things, but also like technology too.
Yeah, I've seen some of Steiner's stuff. Not very much. I know I've been watching a guy called Alan Pittman. I think he's amazing. He's a big, from what I have gathered, he speaks about Steiner. a lot as well. He's a big fan or a devotee of his work. So, but I've just got into Alan Pittman, and I haven't really seen much of his stuff, but I like the way he presents things in his humor and the way he can just accumulate knowledge and portray it in a way that makes it easy to understand.
Yeah.
Got very, gentle demeanor and style of delivery. And we, it's a lot about ley line shamanism and the Green Man, which I don't know if you've seen the Green Man talk that he gave, but the Green Man one was a fascinating one. But anyway,
I have not. Is that, you said Alan Pittman?
Yeah.
I'm gonna write that down because that sounds interesting, especially if he's talking about like Steiner stuff. Because Rudolf Steiner, like his works keep popping up in my algorithm. I'm like, I feel like I need to like study into all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's like my guides keep trying to show me like the stuff to like study. So you said Alan Pittman.
Yeah, I think
And then
one thing I find a travesty in the New Age movement is they don't give shout outs to the people because people ask me like who to look at. And certain people that really started everything. So whether that's Edgar Casey or Carl Jung or Steiner or like Madame Lebowski, even though I don't resonate a lot with her, but they're the ones that kind of started everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
They laid the whole foundation for everything. So like, they had no idea what they were going to do that. Casey was a Sunday school teacher that was going into trance channels and diagnosing complex medical issues and stuff of that nature, telling people how to heal themselves and talking about chakras and stuff. But they had no idea they were setting up like an entire like new system of belief.
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's kind of people that were like ahead of their time for sure.
Yeah. Their intentions, I mean, we may have this wrong, but their intention seems a lot purer and a lot more for the good of for everyone, rather than some of the later people who came into the movement or whatever you like to call it after them. They seem to have started out with the intention to help everyone, although then obviously it's kind of been hijacked in a sense. But got a couple of questions. Cool. Firstly, Michelle just says, I'll put it on the thing. Michelle says, I wonder if the reason they want to do that to their brain is because they can't connect to their heart.
That's actually, that would make a lot of sense. Well, so think about this. So they're coming back to what I was saying about, like with the medical industry, how Rudolf Steiner was talking about trying to use medicine. So the symbol for Western medicine is the caduceus, which is ass backwards because the caduceus is representative of like your kundalini. It's like awakening the natural self and your immune system, being in tune with that, and then having your heart awakening and your heart expansion. But so that would make so much sense, because like if you can suppress the immune system and keep people stuck in the root chakra, then you basically have like full control over their autonomic body and whatnot. So it definitely makes sense with like trying to disconnect people from the hearts. This is like what I'm studying and trying to like do with frequencies and why I'm tuning to the heart chakra frequency is trying to find ways to like, I'm trying to figure out certain frequencies to activate the different chakras and try to like come up with an album or like a set of music that like is designed to like kind of start to like get these like things spinning and eventually like in my life's work, try to figure out how to like activate the Kundalini in people.
Totally. It's like do like have an album with one song for each chakra sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. The other question was from Gail. Hey Gail. She says, where is it? Oh, there it is. I have an answer for this. A sort of a theory on this, but after you, Luca.
So the Earth frequency is 432 hertz. But you should take it away. I want to hear what knowledge you got about this.
Well, a lot of the frequency work that I do is kind of mainly with the solfeggios, but also when there are things to be added to that, like combining different frequencies together. I generally just use my intuition and go with what feels right. And like, for example, if I've done a load of frequencies that sort of utilize plant frequencies or mushroom frequencies or herbs or something like that, and I don't look up what the frequencies are for these mushrooms, herbs or plants, I just go with what feels right to me, and then I test it on myself to see if I can feel it in that part of the body. So I've mapped out the frequencies to the parts of the body and the different systems and stuff like that. So I'll try and intuit, and I'll get a number. Say, for example, the number is, I don't know, 825. and then I'll have a look to see on what the note closest to that number is, and then I'll look at the A4 value, and that will be the sort of the A4 the frequency for that thing. It's not to say that people will agree with the frequencies that I come up with. But we can only basically go on our own feelings and our own intuition and our own knowledge, and we don't always have to obviously copy what someone else does.
Yeah.
And so that's how I basically do it. I just do it with my own intuition. And with regards to the earth frequency, I was having a conversation, must have been a couple of years ago, with a friend, with Vaishu, actually. Thomas, you know Vaishu. And we were kind of discussing the different element frequencies like wind, earth, fire, ether, etc., water. And we kind of almost in agreement, we kind of said that the earth frequency was, we came up with 781, and I know the Schumann resonance is supposed to be 7.83, I think. But we kind of come up with the fact that the earth frequency was 781, and I had a look on there to sort of the on a scale to see what the closest, basically what note was 781 hertz. And I can't remember what the note was, but the A4 value of that was 438.32. So that kind of, I took that as the earth frequency. And when I played that frequency, I did feel, I knew it kind of felt like it was right to me anyway, because I immediately felt grounded and connected to the earth. And I don't know whether that was just me imagining it because I wanted that to be the earth frequency, or but it felt like the same. And it was the same when we did the water frequencies and the air frequency and the fire frequency. It almost like invoked those senses, those feelings within you. And so you kind of, that's how I knew, at least for me anyway, that those were the frequencies, and they may just be relative to me, I don't know. But
so actually I'll send you a chart. It's actually on a website that I like look into called the Cosmic Octave, and it has a whole entire chart of all the different frequencies, and there's different ones for the earth, there's different ones for the moon based off the cycles. So the 432 hertz one isn't the actual, I don't think it's the actual frequency of the earth. I think it's the actual, like, because it's not the resonance of the earth, like the actual resonance of the planet itself. It's a different frequency. And I've tuned, there's one that's like 437.8. It's similar to like that 438. And I tune to that one usually. Depending on what note or key that I'm playing in. And it feels a lot more resonant. But the 432 hertz one, that is, I think that's the actual frequency of like, it's of the rotation around the sun, or it's something about like in its relation to the moon. I see what you mean. As opposed to like the actual resonance and like the frequency really in relation to itself.
Yeah, because there's got to be more than one frequency for different things, depending on what phases things are going through or whatever, etc. But I find it fascinating, and it's almost like when I'm trying to create new frequencies or new frequency file, shall we say, it goes back to what you said about your energy being restored and feeling inspired to do it. Because sometimes I think, I don't want to do that today. I'm not feeling it. You know what I mean? And then you wait for a time when you actually, I'm ready to go, and then you can just knock them, you can just bang them out one after the other. So I totally get it. But who's that? Claudia says, what about 960? Oh, hold on a second. Hold on. This is another question. Hey Len, how you doing, brother? Foofy says Waldorf. I thought when I first read that, I thought that said Waldorf and Statler from the Muppets. The two old men in the balcony. But Waldorf and Steiner schools use his teaching as his work. Do you know about Waldorf?
I do not actually. I feel like I've seen that name, but I know nothing about them. Steiner schools teaching. Also have parental educational philosophy groups. Interesting. I'll have to look into that. Yeah.
Gail says something about the 432, like what we were saying earlier about showing the shadow.
I would say less of like showed me my shadow and more or less of like, just because it's a slower like oscillation, like a frequency, when I find myself, because I don't tune to a different frequency every day. I'll usually find a frequency and I'll like do a prolonged period of time, so then I can actually see what tangible results are happening, like in how I feel every day, and like and see how it shifts my reality. And then also like with like when I play like with my band or like when I play with other people, like the different frequencies I use, I can see how it also affects other people and how their brains work and stuff. So I've been like collecting data, but I find that when I'm in 432 hertz, I tend to be like going through more like things are more chill, but like that's when it's less of like it shows me my shadow and more or less of like it's I become more in tune with like the shadow aspect of myself and kind of like a little bit it's almost like it's kind of like nudging me in a way as opposed to like if I tune to higher frequencies it's easy for it's like when I tune to the frequency of the sun I feel like I'm like fully integrated with it and like I don't really like have a lot that I'm like going through. I just feel like very like in tune and like resonant with myself. And they all do different things too. Like they'll activate different parts of your brain and make you think and feel different things. And I guess it affects people differently based off of how much like inner work you've done.
Just had a thought. I wonder if 432, if although it's obviously to do with like from the moon or whatever the shadow, if listening to 432 actually makes us feel freer because we're allowing a certain part of us to come through that we're suppressed because so we have that feeling of being free. Because we're not suppressing anything, it's sort of bringing up everything that maybe we wanted to hide, but we're just allowing it to come through. So it's almost an element of sort of freedom that is attached to it in a sense.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
I don't know. It was just a thought that I had. I never thought.
I've never thought of that either. That's actually like that does make sense. Yeah.
So actually, I lived in this house with this woman, and she would play frequencies like nonstop. But they were all like, God knows what they were. I'm hearing because I had this thought. I was like, she literally would play these every night, like dancing through the house. I was like, this can't be good for you. Like to be playing all these different frequencies every single night. Like it can't be good for you. I mean, she's obviously had some mental issues.
It's kind of like going to, like I think we spoke about it a few weeks ago about going to different readers one after the other, or going to different energy healers one after the other, and them all doing. Like, you're looking for something and you don't get it off one person because nothing drastically has changed in those 5 minutes, and then so you go to another one looking for the same thing or another answer that you want to hear instead of what you're told, and it's almost like that going from one reader or one healer to another. And having all these different things flying at you and you bouncing here, there, and everywhere, and in the end, you're just sort of confusing yourself even more in a sense. But
it feels like a lot of times those people they're looking for the quick fix, but they're not looking for to actually do the work they need to do.
Yeah, they're like expecting a spiritual buffet as opposed to like deciding on like one course and like going with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you've done the work. You integrate it. You listen to one frequency. You integrate it. You give it a chance to actually work. And yeah, it's cool, man.
Or even just doing the inner work. I think that's the key. No one's really talking about. There's so many quick fixes on these social media apps. There's so many quick fixes, and it's like I don't know if that's really the fix you need. Like you gotta tune into what you need at that moment.
That's why I like picking like a certain tone and I'll like tune to that and I'll stick with that for a while because it's like I said that frequency. So your body, so the brain is like it's a frequency computer. Our senses are picking up on the frequency of our environment, whether it be the sound, touch, smell, taste, like what we see. So when you're vibrating your physical body by moving air in a room with like a speaker, your nervous system, the nerve endings are sending that signal of that frequency to your brain, which is then activating different parts of your brain. And through studying this and stuff, and like studying into like all like the ceremonial magic stuff and the idea of like the spirit world being figments of the psyche and what shadow work is. Think about like when people do rituals and stuff like that. It's like you use a certain sigil and you use a smell and so it's like you're activating a certain sight, a sense like in your nose, a certain sound, you're vibrating your voice like with certain chants and stuff. And all of that combined together is what activates those pockets of your own psyche, which is where those like levels of consciousness reside. It's how I like it, see it and experience it. So I like to tune into certain frequencies and stick with it for a while, and then try to see what part of my brain it's accessing and like what is trying, like what I'm able to pull out of it, and what that level of awareness within myself is trying to see, like show me, so then I can integrate with it, and then that's when I'll move on to the next thing when I find that I'm not like no longer like learning from it. I feel like kind of like just centered through it.
Yeah, totally. And there's a good point you made about how all the sensors just pick up on the frequencies around us. Because, and in a sense, that's kind of. I remember seeing a video about a school where children were seeing with blindfolds on, and they could see people hold fingers up and stuff like that, and how many there were, and that always kind of baffled me for a time, and how you can see without. With having your eyes closed, and then I had the sort of the something came to me that thought we're using our whole body as like a receiver of frequency, and we can interpret how we interpret them, and with our eyes closed we have to use other parts, and if we're sensitive enough we can actually form a visual representation in our mind of what we're seeing, even though we've got our eyes closed. And but the and so what you're saying about using the free, I guess that's why we can hear, and our body responds to frequency, even if we can't necessarily hear it audibly a frequency. And but most from what in my experience, when I say that to people, people don't know that. People, I say, just if they want to listen to a frequency, they say, how loud do I have to have it? Or, you know, I can't hear that. I said, your body can hear it. You don't need to hear it. Your body can hear it. And then they sort of give it a try, and they you know, we need to experience things for ourselves in a way in order for it to sort of to understand it or believe it, shall we say. So, but yeah, it's a good point.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with all that.
So, but what frequency do you tune your band? Do you all tune? Do you change, or do you?
Yeah, we've been experimenting with this. The bands in the past, every single song that I did was like different frequencies. I had different guitars for them, but that became a pain in the butt to like go play shows and carry all these different guitars. So I've been trying to refine it to like one that I use. The album that I just put out a year ago with my band, it was in 442.56 hertz, which is the frequency of Venus.
Oh yeah.
And it's the third eye chakra. So also like Metatron. So like if you like go look at like the actual album cover, you'll see like Metatron's cube on it, and like it was like the whole concept was like I was trying to channel like that energy and that spirit with like, and it was cool because like tuning that frequency is like the music wrote itself. Like we didn't write any of the songs. We just kind of got together and we would just like put it into motion, and like the songs would just like create themselves. It was pretty cool. But now I've been tuning to 444 hertz in the key of C, which translates to 528 hertz, the heart chakra frequency. But 444 hertz is also the key of David.
Oh, is it?
It's said to be the key of David, which I've been studying because like I said, I've been like I'm fascinated with the occult and stuff, and I like reading books on all that stuff and studying into. One of my favorite bands is Tool, and Tool like kind of like led me down the path of studying into like things like that, and looking into all like the old like King Solomon stuff and how he was like working like trapping like the demonic energies and the symbols and sigils, and just found fascination with like what that concept is, and like seeing kind of like understanding how it's just like the shadow aspect of the psyche, and diving into that and looking into what the frequencies actually represent and all that, and found a lot of cool stuff with it. But I found that 444 hertz is the one that like it's like, so in the song Hallelujah, so King David was Solomon's father, I believe, and the song Hallelujah, I heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord. So that I think like there's like a key, like a metaphor in that, is like it's the idea of like that it's a certain frequency, and so they say the key of David was 444 hertz, and it's said to like tap into the angels and stuff. And anytime I play that frequency, it feels like just light in the room, and like I feel like any like dark energy just completely like subsides. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah,
you should try it sometime. Try like tune your guitar to like C standard 444 hertz.
Yeah.
It's a really nice frequency.
I'll give it a go. I normally do 432. The band that the Planet Band, we just I've tried. I did try to get the rest of them to agree to tune to 432 or another one, but they weren't. They give it a try, but we're at 440 unfortunately, and I mean it's all right. I mean
it's a lot of work.
Yeah,
especially with like drums, like each drum. I'm trying to like figure out with my drummer actually, because he has a massive drum kit, how to like tune each drum to the specific planetary frequencies and whatnot. And so it gets to the point when we jam together, like certain like notes that he'll hit on the drums, like I'll hear the actual frequency and I'll find like a note, and it'll create these like overtones and harmonics that sound like angels singing and shit. Sometimes it's really cool.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, like when you strum a guitar, there's 6 notes, but like there's thousands of subharmonic frequencies in those notes that you can bring to like the like to an audible place by using certain effects like reverb, by giving it distance, time, like delay, oscillating things with like filters and like high pass filters and stuff. So I have a pedal board that I do all that with, and I'll like figure out how to like oscillate like the frequencies in certain ways to get like certain tones to come through, and it sounds like there's like spirits like whistling like in the background. It's cool.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I call my amp my portal.
Yeah, and I just had a thought. Every I don't know how much work it would take, but if you did I'd say improvised or different versions of Holst's Planet Suite with the songs tuned to the different frequencies of the planets as well. But that's I don't know if you're into classical music.
Actually, yeah. So I approach the guitar with a classical approach. So I'm like I'm rooted in the blues, like the sound of the blues and like that 70s kind of psychedelic kind of vibe. But and that's where like I feel like the soul aspect of my music comes through. But I approach the actual way that I play with a classical kind of sound, almost like orchestral. Like there's times where I like make it sound like a viola and like a violin, because I grew up playing the violin and I really loved classical music, but wanted to find a way that I could like, it's like, if you've ever seen the movie Crossroads,
no,
it's a great movie to see, but it's an older one, but it's like he ends up the kid ends up like he was a classical musician, but then he wants to learn the blues, and then he finds a way to like he has to go battle like the devil's guitar player or whatever. So like when this dude's soul back and he like beats him by molding the classical sound with like the blues sound together, and it's just like the coolest sound in the world. Like,
awesome. Yeah, I imagine that. Cool. Oh, because Michelle told me, because you obviously did a live earlier on TikTok where you were playing around with your guitar, and I thankfully Michelle recorded a bit of it and sent it to me, and I must admit, when I was listening to it, I was thinking, you kind of that what you were playing reminded me a little bit of Gilmour. The way you were sort of using the not playing necessarily many notes, but you're playing the right notes in you were using it's like less is more, because that's obviously
David Gilmour is my biggest inspiration for that reason. Like he could hit one note and like pull like your soul out of you, and I find so, because I'm growing up in a generation of people that like that it's all like shred. Like how much theory do I know? And I've always been someone who like it's like with a frequency, like when you just listen to one frequency, it taps you into like an energy. So like less is more. So like you can say so much with like so little, and that's kind of like the approach that I take. And I kind of go with like, at times you might have heard in the video, like you'll hear like the volume swells. It's like that's like the viola kind of aspect that I go with, and it like something about the way that resonates as it goes from like quiet to like it builds up. You feel it, especially in the physical room. It's really cool. I'm not a shredder. I like making people cry. And feel things with a guitar, as opposed to like making them be like,
totally. I mean, the best solos that for me anyway, personally, are the ones that slowly build up to it. Like, say, I don't know, Stairway to Heaven is a classical example, or the Rock Bottom solo, or Comfortably Numb. I mean, that's just a way that you build it to piece by piece and takes you on that journey, instead of just a mass of notes, a billion notes per second or whatever they play. But anyway, it's all about feeling and the way that it moves you. So,
absolutely. Yeah, when I stumbled across Pink Floyd and Gilmour, that's when I got serious about music. When I heard him play his first solo, I was like, this is the sound like that I'm going for. It just resonates with my soul. Like, it's cool.
I have to admit, you did make me think of Gilmore when I was listening to you. So
So a paying homage and it's working out. Cool.
yeah, man. Hey Jeff. Hey Ada. Summer says that's my favorite band. I love Manyard. Did you mention Manyard? Who are Manyard? I've never heard of them. Foofy says Tool. Do you know Tool?
That's my other favorite band.
Oh, is it? Oh, cool.
Yeah, Tool's insane. So Tool is like
They use different frequencies. I don't think they're.
Yeah, they get deep into it. They're more of like so Pink Floyd opened up the whole like idea of like they showed with music like, hey, here's like we're connected to this vast, huge universe, and they did it with sound and like lasers and shit and frequency. And then Tool was one of those bands that kind of took that aspect of Pink Floyd, but then they took kind of the darker, more like occult aspect of like Led Zeppelin and kind of like molded two together.
Yeah. yeah. I haven't really listened to any Tool, though. I've heard a few people tell me about them, so I think it's a sign of it.
You would dig them, yeah. Look, check out the album Lateralis. It's all about like swinging on the two sides of the lateral cortex, and then the one song, actual Lateralis, is they wrote it in the Fibonacci sequence. It's insane. Yeah, it's crazy. It's really cool. And if you ever get a chance to see them live, it's worth like the tickets are expensive. They're like $100 or something like that, or $200 sometimes, but it's worth every penny. It's like a spiritual experience.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Oh, someone says Maynard. Oh, sorry, Maynard is the singer of Tool. Oh, I know which one. Oh, excellent. So yeah, that's cool. Any questions, Thomas, brother?
No, we might need to wrap it up though. Like an hour.
Cool.
How do people contact you for readings and human design?
You can hit me up on my TikTok. It's Luka the Light 777, or you can either message me on there, hit me on my WhatsApp. It's in my link in my bio on there, or on Instagram, which is also Luka the Light 777. I'm gonna be making a website and everything soon once I figure out like all my services and get things like put together. I might be doing like a Patreon as well. So just in the process of all that. But for now, just message me on those platforms. And if anybody messages you first claiming they're me, it is not me. So please do not get scammed. As we talked about earlier.
Yeah. Excellent. Right. I think that about does it. Thank you so much, Luka, brother.
Yeah, thank you guys. This was awesome. It was fun.
And thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Peace.
Au revoir.
Peace.